The Caracal moved the stone terrace because height lied less than ground. The terrace ran along the slope like a forgotten sentence, blocks of limestone stacked generations ago to hold soil long enough for crops that no longer grew there. Time had loosened the structure, mortar had crumbled into dust, some stones leaned outward, others sank inward, each responding differently to gravity and rain. What remained was neither ruin nor wall, but something in between. A narrow path of uneven footing suspended above a drop that looked farther than it was. The Caracal stepped onto it without hesitation. He was an adult male, lean and powerful, coat the colour of dry earth warmed by sun. His black ear tuft stood upright, sharply defined against the pale rock, flicking only when sound demanded attention. His paws placed softly, pads spreading to grip stone edges that no longer trusted weight. He did not walk close to the outer edge. He did not hug the inner wall either. He chose the line where balance was tested, but not forced. Below the terrace, the slope fell away into broken scrub and scattered boulders. From above, the drop looked severe, vertical, punishing, final. From the Caracal's eyes, it resolved into steps, ledges, angled stones, places where momentum could be redirected. Distance mattered, but understanding distance mattered more. The terrace smelled of sun, lichen, and old moisture trapped between stones. Lizards had passed here recently, their quick bodies leaving faint heat signatures that lingered in sheltered cracks. Rodents moved at night along the same path, using the wall as cover, unaware that height made them visible. The Caracal paused. His head lowered slightly, eyes fixed not on the path ahead, but on the air above the drop. Wind rose along the face of the slope, lifting scent upward rather than letting it settle. Smell arrived early here, fragmented, incomplete. That was dangerous. He waited until the wind finished deciding. A gust passed, then another weaker one. The air steadied just enough. He moved again. Farther along the terrace, a break appeared where stones had collapsed inward, narrowing the path. Beyond it, the wall resumed, intact but offset slightly, creating a short gap no wider than a body length. The Caracal stopped at the edge. He looked down. The drop beneath the gap was not deep, but it was awkward. A slide here would not kill immediately. It would injure, trap, slow. That was worse. He crouched, not to jump, but to test. One forepaw reached forward, touching the opposite stone lightly. It held. He shifted a fraction more weight, listening for sound rather than feeling for movement. The stone answered honestly. He crossed without jumping, flowing over the gap in a controlled transfer of weight, tail adjusting mid-step to keep balance exact. The drop came short. That mattered. Below the terrace, movement caught his attention. A rock hyrax emerged briefly from cover, its body squat and alert, nose twitching. It climbed partway up the slope, stopping beneath the wall, unaware of what moved above it. The Caracal froze. Hyrax were heavy for their size, strong, quick to vanish into cracks. Catching one required precision, not speed. The terrace gave advantage, but only if used correctly. The Caracal shifted sideways along the wall, positioning himself directly above the Hyrax's likely escape route. He did not rush. He let the animal finish its own calculation. The Hyrax bolted upward. The Caracal dropped. Not straight down. Angled. He launched from the terrace with a controlled descent, landing just short of where the Hyrax expected danger to come from. The impact was clean. The kill was fast. He lifted his head immediately, ears high, scanning for response. None came. The terrace had hidden the sound. He dragged the prey back up to the wall, choosing a place where stone formed a shallow recess. Here, the drop below broke sound, and the height discouraged interruption. As he fed, a human voice carried faintly from far down slope. Two men walking a narrow path, talking without urgency. Shepherds, perhaps, or workers checking old boundaries. Their presence was distant, irrelevant for now, but noted. The Caracal finished feeding quickly. Terraces were not places to linger. As afternoon advanced, light changed character. Shadows sharpened along stone edges. Heat reflected upward from pale rock, flattening contrast and making depth harder to judge. The terrace became deceptive. What had been readable in softer light now demanded caution again. The Caracal moved on. He followed the wall to its end, where stone gave way to broken ground and scrub reclaimed the slope. There, height dissolved back into irregular land, and scent returned to the ground where it belonged. Before leaving, he stopped and looked back along the terrace. From a distance, it appeared more dangerous than it was. That illusion protected it. Animals that feared the drop avoided it. Animals that rushed it fell. Only those who understood how short the fall truly was, and where it ended, could use it safely. The Caracal turned away and disappeared into brush, ear tufts the last thing to vanish against stone. Behind him, the terrace remained, measuring distance, exaggerating consequence, waiting for the next body that would mistake height for truth. The drop had come short. He had known that before moving, and that knowledge, more than speed or strength, had carried him across. The Caracal did not leave the stone terrace immediately. He moved beyond it, yes, but he stayed close enough that its influence still shaped his choices. Height did not end where stone ended. It lingered in the way sound thinned, in how wind rose along slopes and bent scent upward before ground could claim it. He descended into scrub that clung to the hillside in uneven patches. Here, soil was shallow and rock pressed close beneath the surface. Each step carried a faint echo, absorbed quickly by dry brush and broken stone. The Caracal slowed. This ground punished carelessness differently than the terrace had. There were no exaggerated drops here, no dramatic edges. Injury came from twisting a limb on hidden rock, from slipping where dust hid angle. He adjusted his gait. Shorter steps, lower center of gravity, tail held level and active. Above him, the terrace lay silent now. Not useful anymore. The slope smelled of heat and old paths. Goats had passed here earlier in the day, their hooves leaving shallow cuts that pointed down slope. The scent of them was layered with human presence, leather, sweat, smoke, already fading, but not gone. The Caracal read it without reaction. Humans moved through this place often enough to be predictable. What mattered was timing. He crossed one of the goat paths and paused. Below, in a shallow basin where stone collected runoff after rain, something shifted. Not large, not loud. Feather. A chukar partridge stepped into view, body low, head jerking in quick, nervous motions as it pecked between rocks. Its colouring matched the ground almost perfectly. A pattern evolved for slopes like this one. The Caracal dropped into a crouch, not to chase, to calculate. Birds here did not flee in straight lines. They exploded upward at the last moment, wings beating hard, trusting altitude and chaos rather than distance. The Caracal did not look at the bird. He looked past it, at the wind. The air moved upslope now, weak but steady, lifting scent and sound toward the terrace behind him. If the bird flushed upward, it would cross that rising air and announce itself farther than it realized. The Caracal waited. The partridge sensed something wrong too late. It launched. The Caracal sprang at the same moment, not toward where the bird was, but toward where the air carried it. He leapt upward, forepaws closing just as wings caught lift. The contact was brief, decisive. Feathers scattered. The bird fell. The Caracal landed cleanly, absorbing impact through bent limbs, immediately scanning for response. None came. Height had stolen the sound again. He fed quickly, then moved on. This was not a place to keep remains. Scavengers learned terraces. So did dogs. The Caracal climbed slightly again, regaining elevation not to dominate the slope, but to read it once more from above. From here he could see how paths intersected, how scrub thinned, where stone pressed through soil like bone. Light began to soften. Late afternoon approached, and with it, distortion. Shadows lengthened unevenly, stretching from rocks and shrubs in ways that confused depth. The slope began to lie again. The Caracal stopped. He tested the ground with one paw, then another, listening to how sound returned or didn't. In this light, echoes arrived late, blurred, useless. He chose stillness. Far below, human voices rose again. Closer this time. Two men moved along the lower path, their speech broken by laughter and pauses. They carried sticks, walking without hurry. One pointed upslope briefly, then shrugged. They did not see the Caracal, but they changed the slope anyway. Sound behavior shifted. Birds moved earlier. Small mammals retreated into cracks they trusted more than before. The Caracal waited until the voices passed. Then he moved, not downslope, not upslope, but laterally, cutting across the hillside toward a line of broken boulders where the terrace's influence faded completely. Here, height no longer exaggerated consequence. Here, the land returned to honest scale. As dusk settled, the Caracal reached a cluster of rocks stacked naturally, not by human hands. The gaps between them were irregular but stable, formed by collapse rather than construction. He climbed into one and lay down, chest pressed to cool stone, eyes half open. From here, he could still see the terrace in silhouette against the dimming sky. It looked taller now, more dangerous, more final. That illusion would protect it through the night. The Caracal closed his eyes fully for the first time that day. He had used height when it served him. He had left when it began to speak too loudly. Tomorrow he would hunt lower, where ground decided things again and distance behaved like itself. Behind him, the stone terrace waited, quiet, exaggerated, unchanged, still measuring distance for those who believed what it showed. The drop would still come short, but not everyone would know that in time. Night took the slope apart carefully. It did not erase the terrace or soften the stones. It removed comparison. Without light to exaggerate depth, the drop lost its drama and became what it always had been, a sequence of uneven surfaces, each waiting to receive weight or refuse it. The Caracal woke before the stars faded. Cold had settled into the rock beneath him, drawn upward from the slope and held there. His body had learned to read that temperature shift as time. Dawn was not near yet, but the night had finished rearranging itself. He rose without sound and moved out of the rocks. The terrace lay above him now, darker than the sky behind it, its outline sharper in starlight than it had been by day. From below, it looked taller again, more severe, more decisive. Height reclaimed its voice in darkness. The Caracal did not approach immediately. He circled, staying downslope, letting his eyes adjust to the subtle differences in shadow. Stones that had absorbed heat during the day now released it unevenly. Some patches breathed warmth, others pulled it away. Those differences mapped the ground more clearly than sight. He climbed partway back toward the terrace, then stopped. Something had changed. Not the stones, the air. Wind slid downslope now instead of rising, pressing scent back toward the ground. Smell no longer arrived early and broken. It gathered where it belonged. The advantage of height was fading. The terrace was becoming honest again. That was dangerous. Below the wall, movement resumed cautiously. Rodents emerged from cracks. Lizards crept back onto stone faces that still held warmth. Insects gathered in thin, nervous clouds above the scrub. Life was returning to scale. The Caracal watched a mouse move along the base of the wall, darting between shadows with confidence born from darkness. It used the terrace not as threat or shelter, but as background. The Caracal could have dropped. The distance was short. The landing would have been clean, but the sound would not. At night, the slope carried noise upward instead of away. A kill here would announce itself farther than it was worth. He let the mouse go. Restraint was not absence of hunger, it was placement. Farther along the terrace, stone shifted softly. Not collapse, not break. A single block settling inward, pulled by gravity that had waited all day for the temperature to change. Dust fell silently into the gap beneath it. The Caracal felt it through his paws even from this distance. The terrace was changing state. Structures built to hold ground did not fail all at once. They failed when pressure stopped redistributing and started collecting. This place was entering that phase. The Caracal turned away. He moved laterally again, following the slope until stone gave way to thicker scrub and soil deepened enough to swallow sound. Here, height mattered less. Here, the ground told the truth immediately. He hunted once more before dawn, not from above, not from edge, but from cover. A small hare misjudged distance between shrubs and froze instead of fleeing. The Caracal struck low and fast, ending it without noise, without drama, without height. This was how most hunts ended. He fed quickly and moved on. As the sky lightened, he climbed to a vantage point that did not exaggerate anything, a low rise where scrub thinned just enough to see the slope without distortion. From here, the terrace looked smaller than it had before, closer to the ground, less commanding. That was how time worked. He watched as light touched the wall again, revealing cracks that had not been there yesterday or had been invisible then. Mortar lines had widened. One section leaned slightly outward now, weight redistributed in a way that would matter later. The terrace was no longer measuring distance, it was measuring time. The Caracal turned away and descended fully, leaving height behind him. He did not carry memory of the place as dominance or danger. He carried it as information, something used correctly, then released. Behind him, the stone terrace remained, still offering the illusion of depth and consequence to those who approached it without patience. The drop would still come short, but soon the stone itself would decide something else. And when that happened, the Caracal would be far enough away that the sound would arrive too late to matter.